Good evening and welcome to another episode of Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast. I'm your host, Troy Haynes, former high jumper and now longtime coach. I'm going to be joined this evening by Coach Derek Hinch. He is the associate head coach, the jumps and combined events coach at Washington State. He's a Cougar. So one of my good friends is Bounder 236 on Instagram. 236 is 2 meters 36, which is 7, 8 3/4. And the famous Doug Nordquist, who competed for the United States in the 1984 Olympic Games, came in fifth, just below his cousin Dwight Stones. He's the only other Washington State Cougar that I that I know. I did not get to compete against Doug when he was in college. I got him a little bit later on, and he is one of my first guests here on Raise the Bar, and we have played our share of golf tournaments together. So I'm excited to talk with another Cougar in Derek Hinch when we get him in here into the waiting room in just a minute. So until then, we're going to go to a commercial break with my imaginary sponsors, and then we'll be right back. All right. Well, hey, Coach Hinch, it's nice to meet you face to face here. We've been John a little bit online. I was just telling the audience, and again, you're here on Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast, and I'm talking with Derek Hinch. He is currently the jumps coach, right? Jumps and combined events, and also associate head coach at
Yep.
Washington State, which is awesome. How did you come to be in that position there, Derek?
Oh man. That's an excellent question. No, I mean, just kind of getting after it, doing just doing the coaching thing,
Uh-huh.
rolling through. I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's all just been an absolute roller coaster, but it's been an absolute blast. And yeah, I feel like I moved from San Diego to Minnesota. That was my first big move.
Mm-hmm.
And and I don't think there's two different ends of that spectrum, right?
Right. Yeah.
And from there, I feel like I just kept moving east, and all my family's out west. And so, when the WSU gig kind of showed its face, it was like, okay, yeah, this is something kind of dreamed about, right? And I was an athlete
Right.
in the Pac-12, so obviously held the Pac-12 pretty near and dear, and competed in Pullman one time way back in the day. So
Okay. So you're originally from San Diego, but then you said you competed in the Pac-12. So where did you do your competition? Which events and which school?
Yeah, no, no, no. So I'm definitely not from San Diego. I'm from Auburn, California, up north, and
Okay.
kind of between Sacramento and Tahoe. But yeah, I went from the Olympic Training Center to Minnesota State Mankato, an associate's
Oh,
degree.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, oh, it's a long story from from A to WSU here.
Is that where
So
you competed in the Pac-12? Which school did you go to?
I went to Arizona State University.
Arizona State. Okay. So and which because you have jumps and combined events. So were you a
Yep.
multi-eventer yourself, or were you
I kind of
stretched
wish I
into
would have
that?
been. No, I was a pole vaulter primarily.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, in high school, I mean, like most people, I did whatever events. I mean, I think the high jump was actually what attracted me to track and field.
Right.
I didn't start track until my sophomore year. So my freshman year I played what is it, football, basketball, baseball, and
Right.
then really didn't enjoy the baseball side of things. My dad actually played AAA for the Angels back in the day.
Really?
So
Awesome.
baseball was kind of like my one of my favorite sports for sure, but I also there were things I didn't like about it, to say the least. And
Yeah.
and then with just not really seeing eye to eye with the coaching staff and so forth, and yeah, just kind of decided, hey, let's try something different. Sophomore year, and went out for track and field, coming right off basketball, and so I thought high jump would be a super fun event. It just looked like a blast, right? You're just running
Right.
and jumping. I mean, every day, like my favorite part of basketball games is usually like warming up and just jumping up and dunking or doing whatever you could, touching the rim, the
Mhm.
backboard, X, Y, and Z. So high jump just seemed like a natural thing. And then I saw pole vault, and that looked like even more fun, to
Right. Right.
say the
Understandable.
least. But
Yeah.
yeah, got kind of lucky throughout the process. Had some really good coaches, and yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, it's a story and a half to say the least.
So your high jump and pole vault in high school, how high did you pole vault in high school?
I vaulted 16 feet in high school. So,
So
and I
really
think
good, yeah.
I was graduated in what 2009. Like back then, it was somewhat decent.
Still
We'll say
decent,
that.
yeah. I know enough about that world to know that 16 as a high schooler is, and even though there are guys in the 17s and there's a few 18s here and there, there's also 16 is up there. So I know that's, at least state level, every year. And then so when you did that in high school and you went straight to Arizona State or did you go to JC first?
Oh, I was a big time JUCO kid.
Hmm.
No, in high school, I feel like I was just figuring things out. Didn't study as well as I should have. Like, I feel like I was just the kid who turned everything in, but probably put about 10% effort into it,
Right,
and I had a lot of local opportunities and so forth. But, I graduated high school with a 3.0 or something and could have definitely went somewhere, but really wasn't focusing on anything more than,
right,
as one of my coaches, Jan Johnson, would say, jumping bars and chasing girls or whatever you want to call it, but just
right,
really enjoying my time there. Really didn't have the greatest mentors in my life in high school, and so
right.
kind of that's where it's kind of a wacky story to say the least. But had a great time, and had opportunities like Sacramento State and I don't know, San Jose, and like some local opportunities in my mind, being from Auburn in Northern California. But
Hmm.
really, my dream was always go to Cal Berkeley. Now, did I know what that was going to take to get there in high school? I had no clue.
Right,
Um, but yeah, with that being said, I attended a couple of camps and so forth. And one was with Jan Johnson down in San Luis Obispo. That was a lot of fun. I mean, he just, his backyard is the ultimate playground.
right.
If you've ever seen or heard or been there, it's a blast. He's got half pipes and ring vault, rope vault, high bars, all this fun stuff. And so
Awesome.
you just go there and play basically. And so I went there I don't know, I think my junior year, like Christmas time, that was like my 1 year anniversary roughly of pole vaulting. And yeah, just loved it. Love the guy too. He's just like, kind of laid back, kind of surfer vibes in a lot of ways. And
Right.
I just really bonded with him and so forth. And yeah, and met a couple of good friends too at that camp. And we kind of just decided like, hey, instead of going to Fresno or Sac State, like let's go here and like see, and kind of bettering ourselves, right? And see how
Right.
much better we can get and see where we can make it. And yes, we went the JUCO route, and I loved it. I feel like JUCO was an absolute blast, to say the least.
Right. So that got you 2 years, and then you went to ASU. So
Yep, yep, yep. So
awesome.
yeah, the 2 years there were great. Redshirted my first year there, had a lot of trials and tribulations to say the least. And then sophomore year competed, won the JUCO state meet. Actually committed to Cal Berkeley, and that was like I said, that was the dream, and that was
Right.
where I wanted to be at the time. Scott Slover was coaching there, who he's pretty much a legend. I think he's a 19, I think a 580, 585 UCLA vaulter from back in the day.
Hmm.
Yeah, and basically that's where I wanted to go. Committed. He ended up something happened, and he ended up leaving coaching. They got a new guy, and I still was feeling okay about it. But kind of last minute, I went on a visit to Arizona State and really loved it. Honestly, just loved the team, loved the vibes. The coach, you could just tell, Ron Barella, he still coaches there to this day. Just passionate human being.
Hmm.
I think passion was the name of the game for him. And like I had, Jan Johnson, who's like an absolute legend in coaching. I mean,
Hmm.
he's a bronze medalist in the Olympics and X, Y, and Z. And one of my first coaches was actually Ty Harvey, who he jumped, 590, and he's an Olympic or not Olympic. He's a world champion, I think, silver medalist.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I mean he's an absolute legend. So he was one of my first coaches. So I had like this great knowledge, in
Right.
my mind. But the thing I really wanted was just a coach that cared, if that makes
Right.
sense. Someone that was just willing to, just be there every day, whether it's a shakeout or, a big old workout day. Just someone
Right.
that's gonna be
Right.
there, X, Y, and Z. And Coach Barella was awesome because, he definitely provided that. He was there every single day. He's a volunteer coach too, so didn't get paid a
Yeah.
dime.
Yeah.
And yeah, really enjoyed that. Plus, I'm not a big city guy. Never have been. I
Right.
don't think I ever will be. And so Berkeley, it was more like I'm gonna go there for the school. I'm gonna go there to experience the Bay Area. I was born in the Bay Area originally, but moved out when I was really
Mhm.
young. And like I said, not a big city guy. It was just like more like I can do anything for 3 to 4 years.
Right, right.
And then yeah, it all kind of happened the way it did, and ended up going out to Arizona State. And yeah, it was probably one of the better decisions I've ever made.
Yeah,
Definitely nuked my high jumping career to say the least, but
right.
that wasn't because of the coaching. It was more because I think I had three different teammates that jumped over 7 feet, one of which jumped 7'6". So it was
Yeah.
more, the head coach saying, "Hey, I think might be a little better if we just keep you pole vaulting."
Talent's better used elsewhere. Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
funny you bring that up because first of all, there's a lot of funny things in what you just brought up. One of which is that I just finished a podcast with um, Steve Tully.
Oh yeah.
So Tully's on your all timer list there. I'm sure somewhere. I'm not sure how high. Maybe he's been replaced by now because he told me he jumped in the 17s when he was there. He's the younger brother of Mike Tully, UCLA
Hmm.
great, and I was there. Under one of the many years when Curran was there. But Curran's pole vault career, coaching career, started the year that I got there, which was 1982. So my senior year in high school was his senior year at UCLA. So he had just come back from whatever he finished that year at NC2As and was immediately volunteer coaching, from there. So I don't, I believe Tully was working with, um, uh, who's Carl Lewis's coach? Tellez. He
Tellez,
was
yep.
coached by Tellez. So Curran wasn't working with Tully, but he would come and work out with us. I remember meeting Mike at UCLA. So, and some famous Tully stories I could tell you that we probably can't tell on camera. But they were both local high school kids where I went to school in Milliken and Long Beach. So that's where we got that connection. And so Steve was both a pole vaulter and high jumper like yourself. And you were talking about how fun the pole vault was. And having started as a high jumper, I went exactly the same way. I was high jumping first, did that in sixth grade for a couple years. By the time I got to high school, because we were, only a 3-year high school. So my ninth grade year was at the junior high level. So when I get to the high school, they had the pole vault pit out, all the poles, and no coach. Um, my older teammate was Dave Tomlinson, whose dad, Dick Tomlinson, is another coaching legend that I've heard of, that some people know and some people don't. I guess I don't know how much of a legend you can be if people don't know who you are. But I know that when I bring that name up, there's a lot of people that know him. So I'm like, okay. And Tully and I are a lot older than you are. So when we were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, well, his dad was coaching him, but nobody coached us. But I almost gave up high jumping for pole vaulting the way you did. I was like, this is a blast. I'm like, and I didn't know anything other than I watched the Olympics. I saw Bruce Jenner do it, and I remember watching. I'll tell you how old I am right now. This is before you were born. There was a guy from SC who won the first 2 or 3 different years of the Superstars, which was the original TV reality show that was where they took all the athletes and they threw them together and they had them do these, athletic competitions. They had football players, baseball players, basketball players, boxers,
Yep.
whoever. And they got, what is his name now? My brain, this tells you how old I'm getting. He was a USC pole vaulter, and I'm pretty sure he was an Olympic medalist. Oh, I should know this. But anyway, so I'd seen something. I
Yeah.
don't know what I did, ran in and put the pole in there, and it was so much fun. And I did almost give up. I remember telling my mom, "Oh man, we did the pole vault today. It was so much fun." Blah, 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 So I had just enough craziness in me. I wasn't. I have never surfed yet, even though I grew up all along the beaches. I've boogie boarded and body surfed and windsurfed, but I've never actually surfed. I know you're talking about the surfer vibe, and I'm like, I know Curran is a big surfer, so but yeah, a lot of similarities there. My even more curious question was, as young as you are, how you're already an associate head coach as well as being the, jumps guru, like you said, you're wearing, sounds like you're wearing a lot of hats and married in with a kid also, right?
Yeah, I got a couple kids and so forth. No, I mean just getting lucky. No, I mean it's funny. Moving from Coaching at or no, from competing at a high level to coaching, I mean, it was honestly probably one of the best transitions I could have imagined making because I was like growing up where I grew up, my whole plan was always to become a firefighter. Like that was always the dream, always the plan. I don't really steer too far from the plan usually,
Right.
but just it's the world. It works in a very mysterious way. And I mean, even graduating college, it was like, I qualified for an Olympic trials my first year at Arizona State, and I mean, from that moment, I had that itch. I had
Yeah.
that like, all right, I can do this. Like, I need to like give it some time and be patient. Because you go 0 to 100 and X, Y, and Z. And so I had that itch, and I kind of told myself, all right, like if I really want to do this, your window is only yay big. You need to, give it the time and nurture it and put everything you can into it.
Right.
And yeah, and I was fortunate enough to be able to kind of chase that dream for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, moving into coaching, it was just like the best transition you can imagine. So I went from, competing from, training full time, but it's also, training full time is waking up at 7 in the morning, going to the center by, 8:30, start practice at 9, practice until noon, grabbing some food, lifting from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 3, you head home, and then you hop on your motorcycle and you cruise up to La Jolla Country Day and you coach there for a couple hours. And then, from 3 to 5, you coach. And then from 5 to 5:15, I had to make a commute through traffic in La Jolla on my motorcycle. It was the only way I could do it to Dick's Sporting Goods, where then I would work from 5:15 to 10 p.m. every night, like
Right.
virtually Monday through Friday. And then go back home and start it again every single day. And that was, I mean, you live in Southern California, you know exactly
Right. Right.
how hard it is to make ends meet from time to time there. So that was my normal, routine of training and working and so forth.
Right.
And then some things happened and decided, all right, I gotta move along here. And so I applied to some graduate assistantships and, just was very fortunate to get one at Minnesota State Mankato, which is an amazing D2 program. Obviously a little bit different climate to say the least.
Right.
But yeah, I got to go out there and so forth. And yeah, I mean, and virtually I could just take the same energy that I had as an athlete and put it right into coaching. And I mean, the biggest reason I kind of got from where I was to where I'm at is, just a lot of the coaching programs they have, the USTF, CCCA programs, also just having the coaches I had and leaning on them, like a
Yeah.
lot of people I think say like, "Oh, I worked with so and so and this and that." Like, I'm that annoying guy, with my former mentors. I call them, I bug them, I email them. Um, I mean, and even if I, had a couple handshakes with them once upon a time, like I'm getting their contact info, I'm bugging them just
Right.
because, much like I was a walk on at Arizona State. My first year I walked on there and I had a PR of like what was it like uh, 509, 510, like 16.9 roughly. After my first year, I finished jumping 18.3, like 556, and went from a walk on to finishing third at NCAA's.
Wow.
And so, and it wasn't because I was talented or X, Y, and Z. I think there was something in the mental side of it all where I was really good at. I was really good at simplifying. I was really good at, getting to the like making my way through, not necessarily doing it the right way, but just
Right.
finding a way to qualify, finding a way to get places. And then when you get there, just, taking it one moment at a time, one
Right.
jump at a time, one rep at a time, literally 1 minute at a time. And yeah, that's something I think that kind of led me because I always felt like at most of my biggest meets, NCAAs or whatnot, I always PR'd. I mean, every NCAA I qualified for, I PR'd at. So
So
things like that. So I don't think it was because I was more talented because I know people in the fields were significantly more talented than me, but you kind of find a way to just make it work. And the
Mhm.
vertical jumps, as you know, it's nice like that. You get
Yeah.
3 opportunities at every single bar.
Yeah. Yep. You can figure things out too. I love teaching that when you I don't know if this, I'm sure it's happened to you in the pole vault and the high jump, but I've had that time where a kid takes a first jump, right? And you're like, okay, and let's say it's first time at a new PR attempt. And you're like, okay, so you just made 6'6" and you're going to 6'8", and they run up and it's like, speed was pretty good. They weren't scared. They went after it. I'm like, okay, you drove your knee up pretty good, but then you kind of bailed a little bit early. So I'm like, all right, well, let's try to do a little better on this one. See if you can't ride that knee drive a little bit. And I give them one thing because I've been learning that, as I get older. It's like, okay, I always say to you males, I'm like, you guys, I give you one thing to do because if I give you two, you're going to split your attention on both and they'll both be halfway done or not done at all. So I'm just going to tell you to focus on this one thing, try to do everything you just did and then drive your knee up. And then sometimes that second jump is that, oh man, and they just miss, right? You're like, oh, you caught it with your calf. So, all right, you were a little bit too close and I told you to run faster. So that's on me. Let's pull back an inch and same thing you just did and that should be it. And when they do that, you're like, oh, that was great because you bought yourself three more jumps, right? And now
Mhm.
you've got a chance to learn again. And even though the event is the same all the way through, things change as the bar goes up, right? It's different, I don't know, applications of force or a longer portion of this phase, or, I'm still a very neophyte pole vault coach based on the fact that I vaulted, I think, both as a sophomore. I didn't do it at all as a junior, and then I did it again as a senior. They never needed me to because Tomlinson was so good. So once he graduated, they're like, "Hey, we need a pole vaulter." I was like, oh, "Okay, I guess that's me." Um, and I didn't get one bit of coaching advice the whole time, and it's amazing to me that I never even thought about going anywhere to ask questions, because I was still high jumping, but anyway, here I am wandering on. So you, um, the first thing you said that amazed me, Derek, is that you PR'd every time you went to the NC2A. So did you get two shots or three? Because you said you did 2 years ago,
I
or you
only
did one.
sadly qualified for two. I was a very healthy human being. I only had one injury my entire life, but I had that injury many times, and that was I have extremely high arches in my
Mhm.
feet, and I would roll my ankle. And growing up as a kid, I rolled them all the time. But as you get older and you get stronger and you put more muscle on and so forth, when you roll or sprain an ankle, if it causes more and more havoc on your
Mhm.
joints and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, that was always my thing. I remember my first ever Pac-12s, which was at Eugene, Oregon, and it was actually the first Pac-12 meet ever at Eugene, Oregon. Just finished, a vault session on like a Monday or a Tuesday. It was a great session. It was just like rolling, super excited. I think the meet was on like Saturday or Sunday for me to vault. Um, Finished the day. I'm just cooling down. I'm jogging a cool down lap, roll my ankle on
Mm.
the cool down lap. And like I've done it before, so I instantly start like walking it off and X, Y, and Z. But you kind of quickly realize, oh man, yeah, this is a good one. Walk probably like 4 laps just to like get the
Right.
swelling down, and then instantly go to my trainer and start going through all of that. And virtually, the next day it's the size of this massive kid's ball I have here.
Right.
It's
And the
just
same color.
yeah, no, exactly, a massive softball basically. And just go through it. And luckily, I had some really good teammates that pretty much told me like, "Hey, man, you're gonna be okay." Like I had a national champion shot putter on the team, Jordan Clark, who was a 4-time national champion. And so he was like, "Look, man, you're gonna be fine. Like, don't even worry about it. Like, you're gonna be okay. X, Y, and Z. Like, just work on the mental side of it." And I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, "All right, cool, Jordan, I'll do that." And either way, all week can't even walk on it. X, Y, and Z. Get to Eugene. Luckily for pole vaulters, unlike high jumpers, you're running a straight line. So it's pretty fine. I virtually taped it up, took a little ibuprofen, ran perfectly straight. It was all good. I ended up having a great meet there, finishing second at the Pac-12 championship and thinking I won the meet. And that's what kind of reason I don't think I won the meet was I thought I won it too early, because I was killing it. I was on the biggest poles of my life. First time really, well, second time jumping in Hayward, and so
Yeah.
forth, and was just rolling. All my family was there, so it was a great meet. And someone ended up sneaking up and jumping a little higher than me and winning the meet.
Oh.
But yeah, and then from there had NCAA regionals, and same thing. Like went into the meet just overly confident as a walk on, which I don't know if that's a thing that goes together, but
Right.
didn't quite have an injury with it, but very much it's that Texas in warm-ups, the biggest pulls of my life. I'm jumping a mile and a half over the bars. So I'm like, this is going to be a cakewalk. Come in super late just because it was like, yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. End up making a couple of second attempters and then go out and end up kind of knowing in the back of my mind, like, because, at the regional meet, they take the top 48 and they condense it down to the top 12, right? And in the verticals or in any of the jumping events, if you tie, you either have to go into a jump off or they go to the next mark. In the verticals, you go into a jump off. And so I knew in the back of my mind, I'm either out or I'm in a jump off. And as soon as they went and tallied everything up, they were like, all right, we have a jump off. So I instantly started warming back up, go back to competing. And that's probably one of my favorite stories because it was, we went out at 5:40, like 17:8.
Right.
Like you made 17:6 or whatever. And so when you start a jump off, you virtually, you start at the bar you went out at. And so it started at 17:8. Myself and the other athlete, we're both on, if you've been to Texas before, there's two runways, one on the track and one on the like actual pole vault apron. So they're right side to side. We're both on separate runways, and they basically would set the bar and they look at us both and say, like, bar is good, flags up. You guys have
Wow.
5 minutes. And so it was interesting because I'm very much a control what you can control kind of person. That's how I've always been. I was taught that at a young age. And so when it's me and someone else on a runway at the same time, I was like, I am not giving this guy any daylight. I'm going to try to just go first because I don't
Mhm.
want to think about anything more. I'd rather just like go and do this and not worry like, oh, he made it. Now I have extra pressure. More just,
Right.
okay, I'm going to go. And, the first jump, I'm on way too big of a pole, come in, barely make the pit. I was like, oh, that was a wasted attempt. He actually goes and takes an amazing attempt. It was a vaulter from UC Davis, Ethan, can't remember his last name, but either way, it takes an amazing attempt and he PR'd at 17.6 to get there, right? And then it's like, they drop it 5 centimeters to 17. It went from 17.8 to 17.6. And then I go down a pole, have a good shot, but miss it. He misses. Then it goes down to 17.4. I miss it. He misses it. It goes down to 17.2 or whatever it is. I make it. He makes it.
Go
So then
back
the bar
up.
goes back up.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to mention is this is in Austin, Texas, in
Hot and humid.
in late May.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was pretty warm to say the least.
Yeah, it was.
Probably triple digits, and I was out there. I think the meet started at 1, so we're all out there at 11:30. It's about 5 p.m. at this point. So we're just out there. Yeah, and then we both make 17.2 or whatever, and the bar goes up. And I remember the whole time I've always been the guy to pick the pole up and go. And so, they set the bar. All right, jumpers are ready. And virtually I pick my pole up, I get ready to go, and I feel a wind hit me in the face. And so I'm like, dang, all right. Because Texas, you normally always have a tailwind. But something happened. Wind's now changing, which it does in the afternoon. Put my pole down, kind of hang out. The vaulter I was jumping against, he kind of has a routine, so he has like a 10-second, I'm going to step forward, step back, do all these things, which is
Mhm.
great. You need a routine. My routine was a lot simpler than his. We'll just say that. And I kind of see in the corner of my eye, he's starting his routine. He's starting his like 12-second routine. And I'm like, oh, dang, this will be the first time he'll jump first. Like, what's this going to do mentally, X, Y, and Z? And then I feel a slight wind on the back of me and just pick up my pole and go. And I end up being about 3 steps ahead of him as I come down. And, I just remember coming down, like hitting the plant, making, finishing the vault, making the bar, looking over. And I don't know if this actually happened, but I really remember like looking over at him and him making eye contact with me as he's coming down the runway and just knowing like, I got this. And then he hit the plant and, didn't swing up, X, Y, and Z. And that was it. And,
Wow.
so I finished in the 12th spot to get to NCAAs. And then that year, 12th place, the last person in NCAAs. And I finished, third at NCAA finals. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, and I think that's a big piece, is confidence, in track and field in every single event. That's something that I don't feel like I've been taught at all in
Mhm.
a lot of these coaching clinics and X, Y, and Z is the importance of being confident, of
Right.
having self-belief and so forth. And that was one thing I never lacked. We'll just say
Mm.
that.
Yeah, well, you could teach a clinic on that, I'm sure, because and have a lot of people line up as guest speakers because you watch them. I watch them every week, from football players I watched Richard Sherman on TV, former great cornerback up there for the Seahawks, and then my Niners, and played his college ball at Stanford, and just that guy has never lacked an ounce of confidence in his life. I mean, it's like I'm sure when they said, when he said, "I want to come work for you," at these different TV places, he had to know that they were just going to fall all over him because he's just oozing self-confidence. So it's like, and I think at a certain level, you kind of have to have that swag, right? You can't be up there going, "Well, geez, I really hope I compete well today." It's like, dude, I'm taking this, man. I've told that story to anybody that wants to listen, which I don't know if if anybody's listening, but I'm talking anyway. But I'm like, I remember every time I PR'd in the high jump that I knew I was going to make it before I left.
That's
I knew
exactly what I tell my
every
high
time.
jumpers.
I don't remember one time being surprised and going, "Oh my God, where did that jump come from?" I was like, I was planning on making it before I left, and I
Yep.
sometimes you just know it's time. It's like I took a really good jump, I took a better jump, and now it's like, oh, dude, this is it. I'm going over right here. So
Nah. I mean,
I,
and that's the coolest part about the vertical jumps though, right? Because it's the exact same in the pole vault. I mean, I especially tell my high jumpers because in the pole vault you have a tool, you have a pole. So you can get away with some BS, as we'll
Mhm.
call it. It cannot be a perfect, you could be under, you could be out, you could kind of miss some things, but you could still be on a big enough stick to just like find your way over the pole. And the
Right,
high jump, it's got to line up. If
yeah,
you're 2 inches too close to the bar, even if it's the best jump of your life, you still hit it on the way up.
yep,
Versus if you're 2 inches too far out, you're still going to come down on it a little bit. I
yep,
mean, and that's just the nature of it. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, if you don't instantly know, as soon as you are at your mark and you look up at the bar, you're either going to smile or you're going to kind of shiver a little bit. And if you
yep,
shiver, you might as well just go
yep,
forfeit because it's over,
yeah,
and I mean, pole vault's the same way. Like I said, you can cheat a little in the pole vault. In the high jump, you can't cheat.
yeah,
You have to know without a doubt, like, I got this. It's
yeah,
over. Like, I kind of want to just go over and like hand the next person silver medal because
yeah,
that's how much I'm calling my shot. It's
right,
done. I won.
yeah,
Um, I tell my athletes that all the time, especially in the high jump,
mm,
and it's a hard piece. And that's where I recruit a lot of basketball players in high jump, right? So
sure,
former basketball players. And then, we make sure to talk a lot about dunking, even over
yeah,
winter right now, one of their days is literally get in the gym and go dunk.
yep, yeah,
That's one of their
absolutely,
big days and find that confidence. And as a
yeah,
coach, it's like find a way to communicate with them, right?
right,
Um, and
absolutely.
I think dunking's a good way.
I love that. Yeah, I remember I've just been teaching recently, Derek, to my kids, to the kids, not the elites. But the ones that are just starting out, they have a lot of trouble with curves, right? So you're
Yep.
teaching the J curve. So I'm like, okay, we're in a straight line and I'm going to drop you into a quarter circle. So I have them running circles all the time. We do all kinds of different, variety drills with circles and all kinds of little things. But it's like some people get it and some people don't, and I tell them, I go, you guys have a simple job in a lot of ways, but I go, there are basketball players and volleyball players that are very good at jump mechanics, like they reach back with both arms or whatever it is. And I said single armers in basketball. I remember Dr. J when I was a kid, dribble, dribble, catch the ball with his hand because it's so big, catch it and put it up over his head, and then take off. So to me, I go, that's like a perfect single armor right there. He's not even using that arm for lift. He's using this arm, right? And I go, man, I remember these things as kids. I'm like, oh man, that was awesome. So I'm looking at that and I go, but basketball players are different because all those skills, the quick steps, the explosion, going vertical, I need all of that. But at the same time, how many times do they run curves? And same thing from volleyball players. Volleyball players are like, if you're an outside hitter, the ball goes up, you back up on a straight line, a 45 or whatever, and you run straight forward, shoulders, hips, knees, everything level. You might go heel toe, but you're going to go straight up because you don't have to land on your back and do a half twist in the air while you're doing it. So I go, you guys got to realize you're doing a couple of different things that these other guys aren't doing, and you got to learn as soon as you bend that arc the slightest bit, you're going to lean one way or the other, right? So I go,
Mhm.
that lean is a little catapult that swings you up into the air. So I find it interesting. I'm like, I'm really some of the things this last year for me have been like, one of the things I've always worked on is what are your arms and legs doing at takeoff? Because takeoff's super important. But then I'm like, well, transitioning out of the curve is important also, and getting them to get, I said, everybody gets the lean back and the up part. Everybody does the same thing there. So heel toe, lean your body back, try to hit vertical. But I go, when you add in the extra dimension of the tilt to the left or the right, and whether or not you're getting any of that, that's the key. I go, because unless you're really, really good at just going straight up in the air, you need the tilt, because somebody else who uses that better is going to beat you. So,
Yep.
oh my
I'll
gosh.
tell you.
The other thing I love about you doing both the high jump and the pole vault, my very beginning, totally rudimentary abilities as a pole vault coach, I start noticing things right away when I'm watching these clinics. I go and watch Curran, one of his vaulters when I was there, Greg Stoll. I watch, Coach Stoll at Chapman University, and I'm just fascinated by the numbers and the physics and the biomechanics of everything, and there's so many great applications, but there's already so many things I find similar between high jump and pole vault. Like one thing for sure is the sequential nature of things. And I find it interesting that you say there's ways you can kind of fudge your way through those things, but at the same time, they still do happen usually in the same order, right? Like if you're
Oh, yeah.
teaching it sequentially, I'm like telling the kids, look, you can't lay out before you finish flying. I got people with their head back, you know,
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, right? PEMDAS.
right,
I
right,
mean, that's the ultimate track and field jumps coach thing, right? I mean, it's
right.
literally like there's an order and there's an order of importance, and it's like I remember having some great high jumpers that are like, "Oh, I just want to like work on my in-air technique." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. We're gonna work on your approach." And they're like, "No, no, no, I want to work on this." I'm like, "Yeah, no, we are working on that." But like
Mhm.
we're working on your approach because what you do on the apron is what's gonna get you to rotate better over the bar and get all of
Yes.
that. Like it's not the fun, like let's go jump off of a ramp. And don't get me wrong, I love ramps, I love all that,
Mhm.
but like there's a time and place. Like if you can't do the parentheses and exponents correctly, like understand the equation is done. It's already
Yeah.
over. You already failed. And even though you might clear a bar, which might be a make and X, Y, and Z, but it's still like you're not going to hit your ultimate potential,
Right.
And so
Right.
yeah, it's funny, I mean, but it's like one of the best parts, and it is that simple. I think is also the best part about track and field, and I think as a younger coach, a little older than I once was, but still a younger coach. Like at first, it was like, man, I got to do the shiny things. I got to do the fun, like shiny things. When it's in reality, the deeper I go, the more I learn. It's like it's all fundamentals.
Yeah. Uh, Yeah,
No matter
I
what
hear
you do.
you. I mean, I've been going through this thing recently with the same thing you're talking about. I actually just did a rant podcast before we started, and um, I said, well, I want to talk about what you brought up, which is funny. We keep hitting on the same things. I did my rant on why being too close to the bar is death for the high jump. I'm like, because so many things. If you're too close, I think it affects all your mechanics because there's a part of your brain that likes its spacing. And so you see when people are too close, they're almost like this. They start going like this and they're trying to drive their arms up but not hit the bar. And then they're trying to drive their knee up, but they don't want to drive it up too high because that might hit the bar. And then,
It's a very
since they're
snappy
so
jump.
close, yeah. And since
It's
they're
just
so
it's
close,
like
they got to go into the layout almost immediately because they have
Mhm.
no time to fly. So I'm like, dude, we got to get you farther away. It'll give you time to finish hitting vertical. And I go, so few people actually hit pure vertical. I mean, hitting straight up and down at takeoff isn't it? As much as I did it, and as much as I watched other people do it, I saw Sotomayor do it to the best that I've ever seen anybody do it. About a month after he broke the world record, he came over here to UCLA, and I got to jump in the meet, which is I don't even know how that worked. That's just one of those being in the right place at the right times. But he would literally go straight up. And what I was always impressed by was how much time that would buy you because you didn't have to rush anything. Like I tell guys, I go, the better we get your mechanics at takeoff and you hit vertical, you don't have to pop that hip early. You don't have to throw your head back early. And I go, And almost 9 times out of 10, the times that I get them to hit vertical, you'll see it in their face. They'll go up and they'll go like this. They'll go hump, and then they go, and you'll see a look of panic on their face because they're not getting any closer to the bar. They're still going up. Their knee drive came through and they're still going vertical, and they start to turn. And you can see it. They're like, what the heck is going on? And they're like,
Mhm.
what do I do? And then it's like almost invariably they go into their layout early because that's a pattern that they've learned from doing the same thing over and over. So we're talking about that. And then there's another thing that you said that paralleled um, an idea. Oh, you were saying, oh, you might make the bar, but ultimately that doesn't help you. And I'm like, yes, dude, you are preaching to the choir. I keep telling the kids, I go, look, I don't care if you make this bar or not. The only reason I have this bar up there is so you're not just jumping at empty air. Okay. Now I
Mhm.
do preach in all the drills. Like I do a 0-step drill, a 1, a 3, a 5. I go, we do all those all the time. You guys know what those are. I said, you should keep track of your PRs because if you start going, and the reason I do that is not so much for practice, but on meet days. It's like I like to teach them on meet days. I go, well, I don't know why you guys would do anything different than what we do in practice. You just don't do as many of them. So I go, if you get there early, do the same running drills, go ahead and do a back over, do one or two. You don't even need a bar. Just jump onto the back of the pit. Do a
Mhm.
0 if they'll let you. You and I both know that sometimes the referees, you know,
Yeah.
they're not there to help you warm up. They're
Bigger
there
meets, yeah, less is to be
they're
done,
there
but
to do their own routine, right? It's like, okay, you don't get to do your routine. You're doing our routine, and our routine is the bar starts here, but within reason, if you can do that. And I'm like, well, those PRs might go up on a meet day simply because you got juice, right? But then for the other
sure.
part of it, I'm like, realistically, every time the bar goes up, it reveals what I call are your technique flaws. I can get away with all kinds of crap when the bar is at 5 feet. I can get
Mhm.
away with less crap when it goes up to 6 feet. And I'm going to get away with very little crap when the bar's up at 7 feet in the high jump. Because if my arm's going like this and my head's already back and I'm dropping my knee early, I can get away with that at 5 feet. And like you
Mhm.
said, yeah, I might make the bar, but that technique is not going to work as well as the bar continues to go up. So what I keep saying is, you can jump as high a lot of times as your technique will allow. And then the cool thing about it, I tell the guys all the time, I go, no matter how high you jump, that little ref, I always call him little because I remember the times when I'd be out there talking to them and they're like, could you measure this for me? And you're like, okay. But it's like they always come up to you after your PR, and what do? They raise the bar on you again. You don't get to sit there and go, God, that was great. And you get to sit there and be all happy. They just go, yeah, high five, dude. What's next? And I go, now what's going to get you over that next height? Like you're saying, the guy that says they want to work on their layout, you go, well, then we should just go over and get super hyper flexible. And you should throw your head back even earlier, right? Because it's such a good position. You should just really throw your head back harder and just lay out longer and hold it. And I'm like, that doesn't even make any sense. I go, what's going to get you higher is a better flight, right? And how do you
Mhm.
get a better flight? You run faster, you take off from farther out. You and I both know poles, you're going to get on a bigger pole and you're not going to run any slower than you did at the previous bar, right? If you've got another gear, you're going to try to hit it, right? To bend that pole.
Yeah, but, as you know, like, the key isn't necessarily, like, doing things different. The key is to do things the exact same and to make fine little adjustments, like you were saying earlier, like, "Oh, that was awesome." Like, "I told you to run faster, and so you were a little bit closer to the bar, move 1 inch back." Like, the hardest thing for an athlete is like, "Hey, that was such a good jump." Do it all the exact same, but move back a little bit or move in a little bit or X, Y, and Z, because it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta repeat, just do exactly what I did. It seems easy, but at the same time, it's really hard,
Right.
and so I don't know. I think, the name of the game is consistency, in the high jump and the pole vault and X, Y, and Z, like, that's the whole thing. We had our first meet in December, and I have a zillion freshmen this year, I feel
Right.
like. And, they're all asking me about expectations and all this. And I'm just like, look, I have no, it's not that I don't have a clue. Like, I have a really good idea of what you guys are going to do and how you're going to perform in X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, I've only worked with you in practice. Like, I don't, I've seen you compete maybe, but I wasn't coaching you, so it's going to be an
Right.
interesting one. And so forth there. And we have to learn each other. I have to learn, how you move, how you operate, what you're like on a first attempt, what you're like on a second attempt,
Mhm.
how you're going to operate on a third attempt, and we have to build that relationship. And that relationship isn't something that is built in practice. That's built in competition. That's built down in
Yeah.
the trenches of like going out there and having
Yeah.
some rough meets and having to, work your way through it. And me coach you, me make some adjustments, and bring the same approach time
Right.
in and time out, because if I tell you to move in 6 inches and then you push out super hard,
Yeah. Now,
well, now we, instead of taking 10 strides, we're taking 9, and we're
yep.
like, what the heck just happened, coach?
Right.
Um, so I mean, I think the biggest thing is consistency, right? Is just
Sure.
trying to be able to do all of it the exact same, which is harder, because if it was, oh, whoever tries the hardest jumps the highest,
Yeah.
there'd be a lot of nobodies that would be jumping really high, but it's more, who can tactically calm the nerves, who can keep the arousal at the correct state, and
Yeah.
can go out there, at the Olympics and, hit a third attempt at opening bar, because that's also what I tell my athletes is opening bar is the hardest bar. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, once you get past opening, it's all fun. But in
Mhm.
the verticals, you're always worried about, not the mark next to your name, but if you have a couple of letters next to your name.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
Either
there's an N and an
DNC
H
or
next,
NH. Yeah.
yeah, if
Oh,
you have an NH next to your name, you're just
yeah.
embarrassed, right? It's just like, oh man, I don't want to even tell them like, did you compete today? No, I didn't compete today.
Right.
Um, so I mean, that's the tricky part is, because it's not try harder, and that's where in pole vault I love it because something I picked up from I mean from many better coaches than me is like going up a pole isn't like I'm moving you up a pole because we have to. It's like, no, I'm moving you up a pole because you earned it. It's a promotion. It's a
Right.
positive. It's a happy thing. Like you are lucky to have this. You earned this.
Right.
And like same thing in the high jump. Like I try to like, and like, oh, I feel like I need more space. Well, do you? Or do you just have to run it better? Because like I don't want
Yeah.
to just mindlessly back you up so that you're overstriding or
Yes.
if you're too far away in the high jump, that is more toxic than being too close. If we're
Yeah.
talking about meet management, I'll just say,
Right.
because you can't magically make up 6 inches, but you can somehow do
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying not to do earlier and be a little too close and have this really crummy looking jump that leaves the bar up. But if you are too far and you're
Right.
overstriding in the takeoff, it's over. Like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
done. So, in the pole vault, I'm always like, I'd rather be a little close than a little far. And in the
Yeah.
high jump, it's virtually the same, but obviously you have to know your athlete. If you have a super freak, then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, cool. If we're 6 inches out, we're gonna be okay. But
Right.
for normal, Joes, you have to be a little tight, you have to be close, you have
Yeah.
to really feel connected in every step and so forth. So,
Yeah.
I guess it can go either way.
Right. Right. Well, man, this is another thing. It's coming from almost like from a fan perspective. Like if someone were to watch you, Derek compete when you jumped, what was your personal best? You got into the 18s eventually?
Yeah, so I jumped 50. So and that was the thing when I said I PR'd at every NCAA meet, I jumped 50 at every single NCAA meet. And so I jumped 56 at one meet, but it was a unique one. So I was competing unattached. It was my first year at ASU. It was the literally like 5 days after I jumped 550 for the first time. I went from 510 to 550 in a meet. Then the next meet I competed at was at Altus, or it was like World Athletic or World Athletic Training Center. I don't know. It was Altus, what it is now at Paradise Valley. And yeah, and I jumped 556. When I made it, I had a little bit of bar love, and the left standard wasn't tightened all the way. So it kind of moved down about 3 centimeters.
Yeah.
And which is funny because I've seen it happen many times before. Like I saw it happen at Mount Sac, for instance.
Right.
Same thing happened. The guy cleared the bar, but it moved a little bit down, and they just counted it. So at this meet, they didn't count it for some
Didn't
reason. I had
count
to
it.
re-jump at it, and my arousal was kind of toast after that, and I blew through the
Yeah.
pole on the next jump. But yeah, it was probably one of the better jumps and one of the better jumping days of my life that day. But yeah, 550. So 18-1 was kind of the jump, but I mean, I think I probably made it about 15 different times throughout my career.
Wow.
It was always just that next bar, was
Right.
always the
Oh,
one. And I think I jumped 18 feet in practice, so that's where it was like, it was an interesting one. And obviously I feel like if I would have stayed with competing longer, probably some good things would have happened. But at the same time, I kind of gave myself a limit, and it was
Yeah.
like, I got to move on here. I don't want to be
Right.
that guy that just does this forever, even
Right.
though I applaud those people that are
Oh
still
my
doing
gosh.
it.
Yeah. I've got a couple clients just recently this last year. I had two 70-year-old clients last year. One wanted to break the 70-year-old record. Dr. Jim, if you're out there listening, Jim Baker, he's a hospice doctor out on the East Coast. And then another guy saw me at a clinic and walked up and handed me a card with his phone number on it. I said, "Call me when you start working. I'm 71 and I want to break, I want to do this." Um, and then Cynthia Monteleone, who's on Instagram, she's a 47-year-old mother of three. She's into all this nutrition stuff, world champ. She said she ran something very close to what she did back in college as a 43-year-old and won the gold at 43 at the World Masters competition. And I'm like you, I applaud it. And I've had people go, "How come you don't compete, in those Masters things?" And I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't like jumping off the ground like I used to. It's too much
Exactly.
toll on my body, the pounding. I don't do it that much anymore. I like golf. Golf, I don't have to leave the ground.
Oh,
So
we're gonna get along well. My two passions are coaching and golf, and
oh,
I
dude.
guess I have three, and then
Yeah.
anything involving the kids and the family. But at the same time, like, yeah, if it's just me, it's coaching is probably the number one passion, and playing golf. Oh my goodness,
Yeah. Oh man. I fell in love
that's
with golf my senior year. I had a buddy of mine at UCLA who was a 6'11" high jumper and was a scratch golfer on his team in junior college.
all it
And
takes.
we would go play and he just hits it straight. Just one of those guys, doesn't miss fairways, immaculate short game. It was really infuriating for me to play with him because I could outdrive him, because I was a few
Yep.
inches taller, but I didn't have any idea what I was doing with my swing. Just every once in a while I would crush one.
Yep.
But I'm like, "Hey, I just drove it 50 yards by you," and then he'd hit his approach to like 3 feet, and I would miss the green by a mile. Like,
Yep.
"Oh God, this game," and that's began a long love affair. But the more pertinent question I have for you, Derek, is I don't hear when I talk to the pole vault guys. This is Curran, this is Tully, this is Stull. There's three guys right there. Mike Ashton, the pole vault coach at Utah Valley, who's now gone back east. I want to say he's at Annapolis now. Um, and I haven't asked you this yet. How important is lifting weights? Because I've never heard and Sean Francis, the Team Hootie guy. I haven't heard anything about lifting. So when you get your pole vaulters in there, is it important for them to lift, or are you more like a natural, let's just sprint and be, kind of gymnastic acrobatic, or how do you
Yeah,
go?
I mean, I'm very, fortunate. Once again, I'm gonna say that again, with the the role models and the mentors that I have, and my coach at the Olympic Training Center, Chris Mack. Um, yeah, he kind of said something really early on when it was like me and Joey Yuli, who was another vaulter from Air Force, and Courtney Oates, formerly Courtney Ross. And Kristen Brown, a vaulter from San Diego State slash hurdler slash sprinter slash athlete. The big thing that I really picked up from KMAC was, it's all about just being an athlete. I mean, being the best possible athlete you can be.
Mhm.
And obviously, if you have an athlete with a 1 year training age, lifting weights probably isn't that high on your priority list. It's
Mhm.
probably more like, let's learn the movements, let's learn
Right.
X, Y, and Z. But if you have someone who has a, 8, so we'll say 5, 6, 7 year old training age, who's been doing this and they know the movement and they're pretty dialed in and they've done gymnastics and they know all this stuff, then yeah, what's the next thing? It's going to be, how are we going to get you more explosive? How are we going to get you faster? How are we going to get you X, Y, and Z? And so I personally, I love the weight room. I'll just say it. And I'd say like across the board, even, with my high jumpers. Now, the one thing I really try to do is, add just make things as specific as possible.
Yes.
So in the fall, it's very basic. We're kind of just going through it. We're going full range of motion on squats and stuff, building up tendon strength and so forth. But everything we're trying to do is going to mimic whatever we just did on the track.
Mhm.
And so if we just had an acceleration day, we're going to be in there. We're going to be squatting and cleaning, and we're going to be cleaning or snatching or high pulling or whatever we're doing, and then doing some full range of motion statics and so forth. And then when we get, like where we're at right now, I mean, because I'd say in the fall, our sessions are longer. We're in there for an hour, hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes because it just takes time. Nowadays, when we're moving in there, it's like, we got like 3 exercises. We're moving in there, we're hitting a clean, we're hitting 4 sets, we're going 4-3-2-2, and then we're moving along, and we're moving some weight, we're getting that weight to 85, 90%, like something kind of heavy where there's some good intent,
Yeah.
and then we're
Yeah.
moving on. And then we're hitting some step ups. And it's not like, if you're we'll use the pole vaulter. If you're a pole vaulter and you're doing some step ups, it's like, okay, like I try to aim a lot toward like your body weight and toward the load and X, Y, and Z. And if it's usually a low box step up. So then it's like, what's the most specific thing we can do to talk about a takeoff? It's probably stepping up onto something with a bunch of weight, and
Yeah.
especially in the long jump and the pole vault. I mean, they're very similar events. I don't need to go to a million plyos. I just went and did a bunch of takeoffs earlier. So now I
Right.
need to actually load that leg and get you ready, to put, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, your
Body
weight
weight on it. Yeah.
onto it, to get that special strength and so forth.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I was really fortunate when I was coaching at Cornell before WSU, where, I was fortunate and not fortunate, I guess, at the same time, where when COVID happened, in the Ivy League, everything got shut down like super
Yeah.
hard. Where in 2021, when the world kind of started to come back, most schools were like, okay, you're going to compete. You're going to have, UCLA will use the example. Like they were still able to compete. They had to have all these, you got to wear masks. You got to do this. You got to
Right.
get, tested before travel. Like we weren't able to compete, and we knew it from day one. They told us right off the bat, we're not competing this year at all. So I remember in January, we basically had fall training A, fall training B, fall training C that whole year, because it was literally, we knew we weren't competing. There was no
Yeah.
reason to get you fresh and ready to go like jump a PR. And
Right.
it sucked. It wasn't super fun for the athletes, especially. But for myself as a coach and my staff, it was an absolute blast because we just got to be mad scientists,
Right.
and we just got to try new things, and we got to experiment with, all right, hey, let's go do some power cleans, and let's instantly head into the turf room. Let's hit some accelerations. Oh, cool. Yeah, let's like connect the dots. All
Right.
right, cool. And then the next day, let's hit some snatches, and then let's go do some resisted bounds. Like, oh, we just got to like try different things and kind of really, as teachers as teachers or coaches, we got to really be that. We got to really explain and teach, like, this is why we do a snatch. This is why we do a clean. Like, you
Right.
see how your hips are flying through the bar. Now,
Yeah.
when we go hit an acceleration, I want you to feel the same thing. And there was a lot of those like moments where the athletes were just like, oh, so that's why. And it's like, oh man. And from then on, like that next year, I think every athlete on the roster PR'd, you
Right.
know, and obviously it was probably just because they became such better athletes and so forth. But I think a lot of it was because they understood, like, this is why coach is having me do this. This is
Mhm.
why we're doing these things,
Right.
connecting those dots. And so, I mean, circling back to the question, I mean, I think in the fall, it's important to say the least. But I mean, the whole reason I got into coaching was because of my coaches at the Olympic Training Center, because of, Jeremy Fisher, because of KMAC, because of all those guys, because, they would have a group of, 4 to 6 athletes, but they'd have 4 to 6 different training plans. And I
Right.
thought that was awesome. I was like, man, this is different. Like
Yeah.
I haven't experienced this in college or in high school or anywhere before this. And so, and I mean, I had that a little bit with some scenarios, but I really kind of saw it, and I saw the coaches and like the time they were putting in and so forth. And I was like,
Right.
man, how fun would it be to be at a collegiate program to do this?
Right.
To like get these studs that are on the same page, that are passionate, that want to go and push this as far as they possibly can, but
Yeah.
then, get to know them and, not just talk about a 1-year goal, but actually talk about a 5-year goal.
Right.
And that's something with all of my athletes. Yeah, if you follow my social media, you'll see right before we had our first meet, I had all of my athletes put together vision boards, of just like, hey, what's your ultimate track and field goal? And
Right.
so like I got them all the materials and made them like print out photos and stuff. Some of them loved it. Others were kind of like, all right, coach, a little crazy here. But at the same time, like so many people overestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year and underestimate what they can accomplish over 4 to 5 years.
Right.
And I know I did that a ton
Right.
as an athlete. And so I just continually try to preach that. Coach Dave Dumble was the throws coach at Arizona State when I was there. He's an absolute legend. He coaches at Oregon State now. But he had all over the weight room wrote get 1% better each day. And it's like a bunch of people say that, but it
Right.
was cool to see. And he's a legend. He's coached thousands is super aggressive, but he's coached a ton of national champions, All Americans, and so forth. And that's all they would do. They would just get a little bit better each day. And so
Yeah.
that's the big piece that I try to go for. And once again, last time circling back to the weight room, yeah, I mean, it's important, but it's a supplement. It's
Yeah.
something that adds on. We're never gonna lift before we train.
Right.
Lifting is always the finishing touch. Like I've maybe had one university I worked at where we had to lift in the morning. I really didn't like it.
Yeah.
And it's just more from me trying to control things as a coach. Like I,
Yeah.
I just didn't like the fact that we're emptying a third of the tank here, but then the thing that matters, we only have 2/3 of the tank. I'd rather have the full tank. And then
Yeah.
if we have a third left, cool. If we have none left, cool.
Right. Right. Interesting. Yeah. Because I love talking the weights part of it just because everybody's different too. I find it really interesting. You said about Jeremy, we're fortunate to have Jeremy on, a couple of years ago. And I more of an interview for me. I really didn't know, much about Jeremy before that. It'd be
Jeremy's the
more
goat.
fun to
He's
dig
awesome.
into this kind of stuff, because I just found out his background and he was around from around this area. I went to
Mm-hmm.
UCLA and then I'm still up in, up close to LA. He was from Camarillo. And I had a teammate at UCLA who went to Camarillo. So I was like, oh wow. So right away, I'm finding out he's a local and then, but he's like yourself, he's gone to the Olympic trials and that's one of the things I said early here. And again, if I don't think you just pulled us up in the middle, but we're on Raise the Bar, the Sky High and Fly Jump Camps podcast. I'm talking with Derek Hinch, Washington State University Cougar coach, both the vertical jumps and associate head coach, right? Is it just
Mm-hmm.
vertical jumps or all jumps? And
I
multi,
coach all the
right?
jumps, all the jumps and the multi. Yeah, I got a lot. I got an amazing assistant coach though.
Right, right. Well, you're wearing a lot of hats. So, um, but God, I got lost in the details again, and I looked at a
Yeah,
text.
Jeremy Fisher. I know. I mean,
Oh,
what he
yeah,
does in the weight room. No, I mean that's the part. I can't wait to mad scientist as much as he has. I mean, I haven't even began because I mean, watching what Will Clay was doing, what Chris Bernard was doing, what Brian McBride was doing. Like they're all doing similar but different things. And
mhm,
one's a long triple guy, one's a strictly triple guy, and the other's a high guy, like a high jump guy, and they're all doing different things. And and how much weight Fisher seemingly put on the weight room was not a lot, but once again, I think the only difference is I sadly don't have any 1750, 18-meter triple jumpers or any, 230, 233 high jumpers.
right,
It's like I got some 20, 202, 205 guys. I got some,
right,
talented pole vaulters, but still it's like they have a long way to go. They really have to level up as athletes. And so, I think there are some differences there. And I think, a lot of people would probably agree there. But at the same time, I loved seeing that. And that's my ultimate goal, right? Is just to
yeah.
get it that specific. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, what did Fisher say about weights and everything?
Like I'm saying, I kind of did more of the interview about him, and we talked about the training center, and he even told me, the part where they were going to start, the funding was changing, and this is a couple of years ago, like I said, but I didn't get the chance to go into A lot of technical stuff. I need to ask him again. I'm stunned now that he even, answered back because I approached him on Instagram, and I don't assume that anybody knows who I am. I'm not like I wasn't anything. The other reason I brought that up was, not just wanting to talk about the weights, but one of the passions that I had was I love I love the sport and I wanted to be an Olympian. And I was
Mhm.
watching all that stuff on TV when I was a kid. I watched, Bruce Jenner win the decathlon gold medal in 76, and step up
Yep.
on the thing. I'm like, here's this big buff guy. He's got this chain around his neck. And then I saw Mark Spitz won 7 gold medals swimming, and he's just this awesomely in shape guy, good looking. They put all 7 medals on him, and he's, making posters, and he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and you're like, oh, I want to do that. That'd be great. And
Mhm.
so, I wanted to get to the trials, and I don't know that I allowed myself to go as far as winning. I just wanted to go. I wanted to go
Mhm.
to the trials. It would have been nice. I think maybe if I had gotten to that point, I might have gone, further. That brought up another thing when you're talking about goals and everything. So there are some crossovers there. Like I remember you said the 1 year and the 2 year. Like when I first got there, I asked what it would take to get on scholarship, and they said you need to jump 7'2", and I had jumped 6'10" in high school. So, and my freshman year was terrible and I should have redshirted, but I was a walk on and I don't think they even
Yep.
cared what I did. But then the second year, I trained like crazy in the weight room and did a lot of work. And all of a sudden, I just popped off and went 7'2". And so I got my scholarship. So that was one goal. And really, if you'd have asked me at the start of that year, I would have said the scholarship thing was at the very end of the rainbow, but the more immediate one was definitely 7 feet. But I
Mhm.
remember I jumped 6'10" and 3/4 from a 5-step approach in the fall. So I knew I was getting better and I was ready to go. I'm like, okay, so when I jumped 7 and then 7'2" came along, that was still pretty good. Not on my radar. That was 1984 was my sophomore year. I mean, it was an Olympic year. We had Olympic athletes training with us at UCLA, and somebody even told me, they said, the Olympic trial height is only 7'4 1/4. And I was like, really? I was like, I hadn't really thought about that until then,
Yep.
because if you'd have told me at the beginning of that year that I was going to end up being on scholarship, I would have signed on, right
Yep.
then and said absolutely, and it turned out that there was more, but I had to do what I would call re-goaling. You have to,
Yep.
at that point, I don't know if you do that because I don't even, I'm giving that a name. But if somebody had set out a goal for the whole year and they met it halfway through, I would be
Yeah.
like, okay, we need to come up with some new goals, right? Because you've just
Oh,
met,
that's the best. That's the dream,
right?
and I mean, shoot, I feel like I was super aggressive with a lot of my goals as an athlete. I remember when I first got to ASU and we had to write down goals, because I don't think I'd ever done that until that point. Mentally, I think I had some, but I don't think I ever wrote them down. And when I did, I remember I kept writing a number, erasing it, writing another number, erasing it,
Right.
writing another, and it just kept going up.
Yeah.
Because it was like, if I put this on paper, it means like this is my ultimate goal. And I think I got so concerned with the ultimate goal because I remember it probably started at like, oh, let's jump 18 feet. And then it was like, oh, no, well, like I'm going to do that. So let's like push it, okay, let's jump 18.8. And then it's like, why 18.8? Like that's a goofy number. Let's just go 19. And then it's like, oh, a lot of people, let's go 6 meters. That's a cool number. And then it was like, I remember erasing that and putting, let's go 6'10". Only one other person's went 6'10" at this point. Like that would be really cool, And it's like I'm over here just thinking, but once again, I still have that goal sheet which has a ton of eraser marks, and it eventually says 6.10 meters.
Wow.
And I mean, but I think there is a benefit of just having like just having a goal where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool, like yeah, this is over, like this is achievable, but
Right.
like that's the thing, you could always erase it, write a new one, you could always cross it out, put the next
Yeah.
one under it, and that's like the whole thing with a lot of the vision boards we did was, a lot of them I'm like laughing at some of my athletes where it's like, dude, you're gonna do this like me too.
Yeah. Right.
That's good because then you're just gonna cross that out, put the next
Yeah.
one. Like you cross out 15 goals, you're gonna be in a really good place by the end of that, or even
Yeah.
3 goals. So,
Interesting. Yeah.
um,
Sometimes they do pick some of the easier ones. You're like, you're going to get 2 inches better this year, really? I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
Well,
that's
that's another
cool.
reason I like having my athletes fill out goals is, because if an athlete, you know, I don't know what I would do if an athlete told me they wanted to jump 20 feet in the pole. I'd be like, dang, all right, I really can't mess this up. I got to hold this kid to the highest possible standard.
Right.
Like, I need to make sure I'm writing really, really, really great workouts, but really uh, personal workouts for this kid. Like, I need to do
Yeah.
everything I can to get this kid to his goal.
Right.
Because this guy really wants to get a lot better. He's jumping 16 feet. He wants to jump 18 feet, or he wants to, 16 to 18 is like, yeah, we're going to do that over 2 to 3 years. Like, I'm not worried.
Yeah.
16 to 20 feet, it's like, whew,
Right.
that's a big ask. And so if I do have someone that says like, oh, I'm a 16-foot vaulter, I want to jump 16 too. It's like, oh, okay. Like,
Yeah.
that's cool. So if he texts me, coach, I'm not feeling well. Coach, I don't think I can practice. I'm sore. I'm tired. It's kind of like, okay, I get it. You just want to get 2 inches better,
Right. Right.
versus someone that says, I want to get 2 feet better. I'm going to be like, okay, just letting you know, like,
Yeah.
you need to be at practice for X, Y, and Z reasons because, your
Yeah.
goals are pretty big and I'm here
Right.
to help you achieve them. My two things I have written down on my wall, which my athletic director actually told me, Pat Chung, was is truth and accountability. And those are the two things that I try to do my best. I try to tell the truth to all my athletes. If they
Mhm.
say, hey coach, how was that rep? I'm not just going to say it was good. If it wasn't
Right.
good, I'm a very positive person. I'm going to find a way to
Yeah.
positively spin it, but I'm going to let them know, like, that wasn't what I was looking for.
Right.
Like, I saw you were trying to do this, but that
Right.
wasn't it. Like, that was, you were at an F, you maybe got to a D. We need to get
Yeah.
to an A. So we need a big
Right.
change here. And then I'm going to hold them accountable, right? If they tell me they
Right.
want to PR by 4 feet over the next 4 years, it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
You got some
we
work to do.
have a
Yeah.
very strict,
Yeah.
like, timeline and X, Y, and Z, and it's my job to help you get there. So
Right.
that's another reason I like goals. We'll just
Yeah.
say that.
Well, it has to be achievable too, though, right? I mean, there are
For sure.
some fantastic ones where you might be like, dude, you're talking about world championship kind of level, and I'm not, but how do you say that to a kid, right? If they're serious, you might be like, you don't want to shut that off, like you said. So, okay, I'll buy in, let's start working, like you said. And if you see that the work ethic, matches, because that's a whole nother area. Because I don't know, you played a lot of sports too. I played, a little bit of high school football, and coached, to a decent level with it in high school. And I had a buddy of mine. His name, I'm Troy Anthony Haynes, and his name was Anthony Gaines. So we joke because we'd say brothers from another mother. And he told me one time, he goes, well, I had a coach that told me that hard work can beat talent. He says hard work beats talent. And I said, when talent, he says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I'm
Yep.
like, I go, I've seen that. I said, I agree with you. And I also said, but the little known corollary is when talent works hard, you get your ass kicked. Because I go, you get somebody with the talent that also has the application. I think of, Tiger Woods. I think of Michael Jordan, or, Kobe
Hondo
Bryant.
Planas.
You start getting these incredible athletes that also have that drive and that push and that desire to get better. Now you're talking about, and both are amazing. When you watch someone who might not be that athletically talented, and almost by sheer force of will, they just will themselves to become better athletes. That's kind of awe-inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And at the same
That's
time,
me. That's me right there.
and greatly appreciated, right? I mean, I don't think that I was awesomely talented. I thought I was okay talented, and I worked hard enough, and I accomplished a few things. But when I jumped against people that were every bit as talented as I was, and more so, and then you saw them also apply,
Oh yeah.
the first time I jumped against Doug Nordquist, I had never seen a human being run and lean as far to the left as he did.
Yep.
His approach angle was like, I swear it was like 45 or more.
Yep. Yep.
And he was 6'5", but since he was running so fast and leaning so far to his left, you'd have thought he was like 4 feet tall. but he was still tall as he was running here, and then thump, and I'm like, I go, oh yeah, 7'7", 7'8", that makes sense. I'm
Yep.
like, that's pretty amazing,
Now
So,
that's
yeah,
Sam Kendricks to me, man. When I first saw Sam Kendricks, we were at NCAA's and I beat him at that meet. And I just remember he didn't have a great meet by any means, but I just remember being like, huh, I don't know who this kid. I'm from California, he's from Mississippi. I don't know who that kid is, but whoever he is, I think he's gonna be a pretty big deal.
uh,
And sure enough, yeah, he went on to be the American record holder in X, Y, and Z, and I think he's jumped 19 feet more than
right,
anyone on this planet. And it's just, yeah, it's like that kid's pretty talented and he works
yeah,
super hard,
right,
first one at the track, last one to leave, all
yeah,
that. It's like, yeah, he's gonna be really hard to beat for many years until the Mondo Duplantis guy
right,
rolls along and
yeah,
man, you can't pick a better G field. But yeah, I mean that's the big piece. In track and field especially, it's like you take the best athletes of basketball, football, whatever, like it's all just a who has the best genetics, who has the best coaching, who has the best mental side,
right,
and they all mean something, but still like whoever your parents were and what your genetics are,
yeah,
that at the
huge,
end of the day, that's
yeah.
the biggest piece.
Tell you what. Well,
Or it's,
hey,
it's a pretty large piece, I guess. But I don't know. I guess
Derek,
the other thing I'll just mention, I like to talk a lot about, floors and ceilings, right?
right,
My whole goal with my athletes is to take their, not to raise their ceiling. Like their ceiling is what their ceiling is, but it's more to raise their floor. Like,
right,
what's the worst day? Your worst day. You show up, you feel like trash. You're sore, you're tired, you're sick. Like, what's your worst day? Because if
yeah,
your floor is rising, like, and your worst day is 7 foot, but your best day is 7'2", no offense, your ceiling is going to start to go up
yeah,
because you're over here like confidence wise. I
right,
felt terrible and I jumped 7 feet.
yeah,
I feel really good today. I could jump 7'4". I could jump seven
yeah.
five. So
I like that. My golf instructor, when we first started hitting balls, he would tell me, first of all, there was ten different things that I remember him telling me right away that were like completely mind blowing to what I'd been doing because I was completely self-taught. So he's like, okay, I want you to really cock your wrists hard immediately and lock the club before you start to turn. And I was like, and I literally needed to work on that like a ton of times to even get it right once in his estimation. And then I had to slow everything way down because he told me something that has stuck with me to this day, which was if you can't do it slow, there's no way you can do it fast. So I use that both for visualization and walkthrough purposes. I'm like, if you can't walk the technique correctly, there's no chance that you're just going to go full blast and do it. So I use that, as one thing. God, I cannot tie my thoughts together tonight. I start the story and I forget the end. Um, which means it's getting late. You brought up you brought up that I'm sorry. You got it. This is the part I start to worry about all the commercials say, early onset dementia is real. I'm like going,
no, no, no,
wait,
no.
what? Like, what was I just talking about? I get lost in the details of stories. Um, but Derek, we got to do this again because I have like 1,000 more questions, and I'm sure I'm driving people crazy out there already saying, "Hey, let's go to this." The pole vault is one of my favorite things to watch, and I am in desperate need of the encyclopedia of how to like the questions
I
that
mean,
pop
you,
up in
you
my
and me
head.
both, to say the least. I mean, we're
Oh, how
always
like
learning.
the whole pole changing thing. Like when I listen to Curran talk to his kids, he's like, okay, go in the shed, tells him which pole, right? Grab the one with the tape here. You're gonna go up 2 handholds, move back 6 inches, and do this. And I'm like going, okay, wait, what? Like, okay, what are we doing here? Because I mean, and this changes sometimes from jump to jump, when I'm
Oh, big time. But no, I mean, really, Troy, yeah, you could hit me up anytime. But that sounds great. And the other thing, I guess the last thing I'll conclude on is big time Niners fan over here. So really excited about this season.
dude,
Hey,
you saw me represent, right? Yeah,
yeah, I've been watching it all day and I've been meaning to say something, but Yes. What a year. Oh my
Oh my
goodness.
gosh. Well, I
Exciting
was
for it.
I was born at San Francisco Kaiser Hospital. My
So
mom's
Santa
from
Rosa.
San
So I was
Francisco,
born in
right?
Santa Rosa, right across the bay.
My dad lived in Santa Rosa for a while. I
Yep.
actually went up to Santa Rosa my senior year, right after the state meet. Went up there to hang out with my dad for like 5 or 6 weeks before I went off to UCLA. So I was wandering around Santa Rosa, and unfortunately, I didn't have a car, so I was walking a lot of places. But yeah, so Niner fan since birth, basically. That was just
Yep.
taught to me and ingrained. I saw John Brody play his last season in '72 when I was 8 years old, and then I also saw him win a PGA Senior Tour event. So one of the
Wow.
greatest quarterbacks in 49er history, uh, who was the most valuable player in 1970, I think. And the Niners went to three playoff games in a row: 70, 71, 72, lost to the Cowboys each time. Two of those were to go to the Super Bowl, and one was the first round. The last one they were beaten by Roger Staubach, who scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 minutes to beat them, and he didn't even play the whole game. They put him in at the end, going, let's throw Staubach in there and see what happens, because he'd been hurt the whole year. So I grew up with the Niner love and the hatred of the Cowboys. So you know that watching us beat them like a drum through the whole Montana years was
Oh,
awesome. And then we only beat them once during the young years, because I think 3 years in a row we played 3 or 4 years in a row we played them for the NFC Championship, and they won 3 of the 4 and won
yes.
Super Bowls each time. And the one that we won the Super Bowl. But then now that it's the new regime, it's like now we're just, it doesn't matter. Regular season, playoffs, we're going to go kill the Cowboys. So
Yes.
enjoyed the heck out of that a few weeks back for sure. And I remember thinking it's too bad Romo isn't doing this game.
Yeah. That's
So,
true. That was
oh
that was a
man.
bloodbath.
Oh, they're very good. I'm a little bit concerned. It seems like the schedule, it would have been nicer to have a couple other teams have gotten the cakewalk schedules, like, playing the Ravens right now. I'm sure we can beat the Commanders, but then the Rams are going to be motivated. So I'm like, this game is huge. I'm like,
Yeah, they're gonna be. I mean, yeah, they're gonna be fine. I
they're gonna be
mean,
fine. They're just
obviously,
getting beat
it
up.
goes back to as coaches controlling what we can control. All we
Right.
do is sit back and turn the TV on. So,
Right.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, I feel like they got Shanahan's doing a good job, and they
Oh,
got to. I don't know. I mean, I could talk this for absolute hours, but no, I mean, I've never been this excited about the Niners season because
yeah.
they're rolling. They have so many good pieces, offense,
Oh,
defense, X, Y, and Z. So.
the offense
Yes.
is amazing. I remember, I don't know if you're like
Yeah.
me, when I saw last year, because I was excited when they drafted Trey Lance, just because, oh, he can run and he can do something else. Maybe Shanahan can make that work. Because I know
You need both.
Shanahan
Yep.
had that one year when he was the coordinator at Washington when they had RG3. So I go, he can take a read option guy
Oh,
and
yeah.
run him around. It's probably the one thing he wishes he had all these years, because Garoppolo was a statue. So I'm like, you get him in there, and then Trey Lance can't make anything work. He breaks his ankle. So whether or not he was going to figure it out, we'll never know. And then Garoppolo comes in, does his typical Garoppolo thing. They start winning a few games here. They're playing okay. And then he gets hurt. And I remember they bring in and they go, and here comes Brock Purdy. And I'm like going, Brock who? Like, I already
Yep.
knew some of the other names. I knew Nick Mullins, and I knew, there's
Yeah.
some other guys that played for the Niners that are playing this week. Nick
Yeah.
Mullins played a couple weeks ago, and Bethard played just the
Yep.
other
Yep.
day. And
Yep.
I'm like, I remember those guys, So I'm like, Brock Purdy. Oh yeah, Mr. Irrelevant. And dude, first play, just 1, 2, 3, zip, balls right out, perfect. Guy runs, and he's hitting guys in slants and this, and he's buying time and he's making guys miss and he's throwing. And I'm just like going, this guy's better. If anybody doesn't notice that, after 4 plays, I knew he was better than anybody else. Like, I don't even know how you could have watched that guy play in practice and not gone,
Yeah.
"We need to play this kid. He's better than Garoppolo." And I like Jimmy. I mean, I was
Oh,
okay
yeah.
with Jimmy,
Yeah. Jimmy G
but
was
he
the man.
couldn't throw outside the numbers. Like, if he threw late, if he made up his mind and threw late to the sideline, I would go like this, because I was
Yeah.
waiting for it to get picked. So I'm like, I'm watching Purdy. He's zipping lasers, and he's like Montana. He hits people right in stride. Where these
It's
guys, Roger
it's
Craig made a
insane.
career out of that, right? You hit a running back in stride, they're going to start making people miss. If you make a running back turn around and throw it behind them, they're either going to drop it, or if they do catch it, they're going to get tackled right away. It's an art form. Oh, yeah, he's just elevated the whole thing to a whole nother level. you
Yeah,
know,
it's insane. I mean, CMC is when that happened last year, I was just
great
like,
trade. Oh
oh,
my gosh. Yeah.
here we go.
Huge.
But yeah,
He
no,
was
it's fun.
good, just with Garoppolo. But when you give him, now you got, I mean, just last week I saw that one route he ran. He comes out, puts a move on the guy, and then you turn, and there's safety corner right here, and the ball's already right here. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like, I've lost track of how many times I see him pulling the trigger and the receiver's still running, and
yep.
he hasn't even made his break yet. And then you see the ball, the guy turns his head, is like, I don't know if you saw the route to Ayuk. There was one long one where Ayuk
Oh yeah,
had to beat, and he looked for the ball, and then he went like this, and it looked like he looked in the wrong spot. And I remember thinking, I go, dude, that ball was perfect. He just didn't expect it to be there.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
like just for that one shade of a second. I'm just like, and everybody's going, well, even though they say he can't throw it deep, he's leading the league in yards and this and that. They go, well, everybody runs better. And I'm like, yeah, but he pushed the ball down the field. So
Well,
no,
my favorite part about him is he takes all the blame.
right.
Like I love that. I hate when anyone says anything like, "Oh, it was so and so, it was my teammate, it was my coach." It's just like,
Yeah.
gosh, in track and field, we learn that lesson a lot as a high jumper, right? If you
Yeah.
miss the bar, it wasn't what
Can't
your
blame
coach
anybody.
told you. It was what
Right.
you did as an athlete, like
Yeah.
so I love to see Brock like just take ownership or anyone, any athlete, just be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I screwed up X, Y, and Z, like or and even if it was someone else's fault, it's still like that's just a high level of class, high level of talent,
Yeah.
high level of a lot of things. But
Absolutely. All
yeah,
right,
no, it's
sir. Hey, it's been great, Derek. I didn't know what to expect, but your enthusiasm just in answering was awesome. And then, readjusting for time and all that stuff, everything just still came off without a hitch. And let's figure out A, how to do it again, and B, how to meet in person. I do proudly know one other Cougar, which is Doug Nordquist. And
okay.
but
Yeah, no, we'll be down in LA quite a bit. So where exactly are you located?
I'm in Santa Monica right now.
Oh yeah,
I
okay.
work at
I've been out there a
Vanguard
handful. I
University.
competed at Santa Monica, what is it, City College?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember
Yeah.
competing there a handful of times in junior college back in the day.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, no, 100%. No, it was awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, reach out anytime, and I'd love to
All right.
chat.
Hey, I love it, man. Thanks for your time, dude. Have a
Of
great,
course.
great rest of the season. You're coming up on early indoor here, right? You guys got to
Yeah,
come.
it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. Really fun crew. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, I mean it. Reach out anytime. I'm usually free as soon as I put the kids down at 7:38. We were at some light festival this evening, so
Right.
take some time. But
Right.
really, yeah, any evening, I'm always free. But no, I really appreciate it, Troy. Thank you very much, and go Cougs, of course.
Go Cougs, go Niners. All
Yeah,
right.
go Cougs, go Niners. Have a good night.
All right. You too, man. Talk
All
soon.
right, we'll
All right.
see you.
Right. All right, so we just finished up talking with Derek Hinch. A lot of energy, great smile, great attitude. I love the cockiness. It just it oozes out of that guy's pores, and the way he set his goals and the people that he's already worked with, just amazing. I have yet to do anything other than just talk with Jeremy Fisher. So I'd like to get down there and watch some of the same stuff at the Olympic Training Center down there in Chula Vista. So um, thank you again for joining us here on Raise the Bar. We just talked with Derek Hinch, the jumps and multi-event coach and assistant head coach at Washington State University, formerly of the Pac-12, which is soon going to become whatever it's going to become. And I can't remember where Washington State was and all that. But for the future, who knows? And Derek is going to do a great job at Washington State, which he already has. And we will talk to you next time here on Raise the Bar with Troy Haynes. Until then, have a good night.